we have a very special guest for you. Now, I want you to type up into the chat box SWAT. SWAT. Now, it's my belief that every single one of you tonight have watched an American movie that's involved SWAT. SWAT are the most fierce police officers that are called in when the situations get out of control. And our guest tonight served as the head of SWAT, for 17 years. And today, my good friend Corey Jones is coming along to teach you the art of negotiation. He's going to teach you strategies to help you get the very best detail. So I want you to go to the chat box now, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to type in Corey Jones. Type in Corey Jones, ladies and gentlemen. Once you type in Corey Jones, only then I'll bring him on. Come on. Type in Corey. Give him some of that energy all the way here from Malaysia. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring you on. Here's our good friend, Corey Jones. Corey, good evening.
Good evening. Daniel, thank you so much for inviting me and being a part of this amazing event. All right, if you can hear me, let me just get a thumbs up from everybody. If everybody can hear me good. All right, awesome. There's nothing worse, right, than doing one of these and you're having technical difficulties, right? So part of what I do is my goal is to make you ready. My goal is to make sure that you're ready, is be ready. That was my old hashtag. So like James said, I have this American accent, and I don't call it an American accent. What I call it is I speak the words the way the dictionary says you're supposed to say them. You guys all don't. I do. So it's not an accent. Daniel has an accent. So how do I know Daniel? He was gracious enough to come onto my TV show a couple of months ago, and he shared with all my viewers in the Philadelphia, New Jersey area, which serves about 10 million people, some business strategies. And I used my interview of him for my TV show, and I learned. I literally said on the TV show, I'm going to steal this. I'm using this as a coaching session. And then I did take a coaching session with Daniel a couple months ago. And there are fantastic benefits from that. Within 3 months, I had been on the regional news, which serves about 10 million people right out of Philadelphia. Go Eagles, right out of the Philadelphia area. And for three times I appeared on that news, which 6 to 10 million people had the opportunity to watch me talking about safety skills. As you see up in the corner, that's safety, that's security, that's survival, right? And I know this is kind of like a business group, and we're all looking to increase our impact and increase our influence and increase that bottom line. But I'm going to transition everything that I learned from being a police officer and a negotiator and a SWAT captain to how it can apply to business. So if you see me looking, remember I said you have to be ready. I have notes. I have a timer. I don't want it to go past the time limit that I've been allotted. So remember, everything we do is a negotiation. Every conversation we have is a negotiation. So I want you to write the number 1 to 8, the numbers 1 to 8. But just remember, I'm going to preface this by saying these aren't steps. These are tools. And they may flow. You may start at 1, you may bounce to 2, you may then progress to 5 and then go back to 2 and start again. You'll see how that works. So everything is a negotiation. And there's 3 types of people that we're going to negotiate with. So number 1 is everything is a negotiation. We have the compliant people. They're easy. We know as soon as we start to talk to them, they're going to be compliant. They're going to want to do the deal. They're going to want to accomplish a mutually beneficial mission, right? Then there's the unknown. Those unknown, we don't know if they're going to be compliant or not. This may be we're just meeting them at a networking event and we're talking to them, and we know we're going to pitch to them. We know we're going to offer them our services, and we know our services. I'm going to assume that everybody here is a good person and that all the services that we're going to offer are going to be mutually beneficial. Nobody in this class is going to want to take advantage of anybody. We're going to give them a mutually beneficial. That makes it really easy for us to do that. And SWAT, usually my job when I'm negotiating with somebody is to save lives. So obviously that's mutually beneficial. But sometimes I want to talk people into going to the hospital or talk people into being arrested without us having to use force. Daniel said we are fierce. In American law enforcement, we can't be fierce anymore. We have to be nice, and we have to smile. Okay, you watch the news. We have to smile now. So smile. When you're talking, when you're negotiating, smile. And then what we're going to focus on today, that third type of person, is that non-compliant. We know right away they're non-compliant. Who likes to deal with a non-compliant person? Nobody does, right? Nobody does. But we might have to. It might be a non-compliant boss. It might be a non-compliant coworker. It might be a non-compliant significant other. It might be a non-compliant potential or current client. So we're going to focus today on those non-compliance, the most difficult ones, because the other two are a little bit easier. So under number 3, we have to have this conversation. We're going to engage in a conversation. And now the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, will call this a behavioral analysis interview. So when they're interviewing potential serial killers or they're interviewing people to see if they committed a crime, they do a behavioral analysis interview. And what we're doing then is we're assessing their emotions, we're assessing their normal body language to non-threatening things, to things that don't have anything to do with your actual deal. Is you're just basically having a conversation and you're assessing what they are. It also could be called an audit. We're auditing how they respond to non-threatening or non-pressure or non-decision-making situations, right? So we're going to do that interview and we're going to assess. Now, everything we're doing after that is basically going to stay in there, but we're going to start to add more tactics to them. So that's number 3, is we're going to do that interview or do that audit. Number 4, like you're all doing right now, and it's happening naturally. So if we can do that during our interview and our conversation, is we're going to listen, right? We're going to actively listen, and we're going to project empathy. Okay, we're going to actively listen. As you're doing right now, how you actively listening, when you nod your head when somebody says something, when you go, oh, I understand. That sounds tough, right? Those natural things we're doing, we're going to actively listen. If somebody comes up and gives you great news, your eyes should pop up like, oh my God, that's great. That's actively listening. That's showing empathy, right? Somebody gives you bad news, like, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's actively listening. That's showing empathy. We're not taking on their feelings. We're showing them that we understand their feelings, right? That's going to start to bridge that gap. That's going to start to lower their stress. So number 4 is going to listen. We're going to actively listen, and we're going to project empathy, right? If we can use empathy and make it natural, how we normally do it. I don't want you acting. I want you doing exactly what you're doing now. I want you being yourself, but I want you focusing on what you're doing, but I don't want you acting, because acting comes off as acting. Right? Unless you're Tom Cruise, it comes off as acting. So number 5 is we want to assess their position and assess their motives. So we're going to assess their position or their motives. Are they a hard no? Are they maybe? Are they, well, only if? We need to assess their position. And we're going to be able to do that by actively listening to them and encouraging them through empathy to continue to talk to us, right? We want to do much less talking, ask open-ended questions, follow up on things that they're saying to us, but that's going to help us to assess their position. And you can kind of see where this is going, right? You can kind of see where this is going. In business school, they may tell you to answer their objections, handle all objections or all that stuff. We can't do that until we find out what they are. But instead of asking them, what's the reason that you wouldn't do this, which is a hard question, we're just listening to them. We're just listening to what they're saying. And we're going to pick up what their position is and what their motives are. And I'm looking at my notes. Okay, I got to be ready. I got to make sure I give you exactly what this is in this amount of time. So now we assess their position, and it's going to be a constant thing. It may change. We may have gotten it wrong initially. So that's why I said it's not necessarily a step-by-step. It's a continuing process to do this. So in case we're wrong, we need to continually listen and continually make sure that we're understanding them, right? Because there's nothing worse than us trying to drive this way when we should have been driving that way. The GPS keeps saying recalculating for a reason, because it's trying to get you to your goal, right? So now we do that. So now our job is, okay, I assessed why they may not want to comply. Now I have to remove. Number 6 is remove that fear, remove that barrier, okay? In SWAT, the fear sometimes would be, I'm not coming outside because you guys are going to shoot me or beat me up. So I had to remove that fear. I had to find out, all right, what would be the best way for us to take you into custody when we come out? Okay, obviously you know that we have to arrest you because of what happened. But if you comply, maybe we can talk to the judge and let the judge know that you complied. So if I can remove that fear, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll make sure that the officers that come up and arrest you ask you to lay down as opposed to tackle you. How about that? Would that work? So I'm going to do my best to remove that fear, right? I need to remove whatever barriers there are. So under number 6, remove that fear. Is it their impact in this negotiation? Is it something inside them that is causing them fear or anxiety or stress or non-compliance? Or is it my impact? Is it something that I'm saying? Is it my personality? Is it the way I'm driving? So whatever it is, if by listening to them, they say, well, you just kind of sound like you only want to get this because you're going to make more money. That's great information. So I understand that. If I were you, I probably wouldn't want to do that deal either. So, and then we can move that way. So that was empathy, what I just said there. If I were you, I probably wouldn't want to do this deal either, if that's what I thought. So I apologize if I came across as being just trying to take advantage of you, if that's what you thought. Because here's how this deal is going to benefit you. So I want to remove that fear. And by removing that, I have to remove either their impact or my impact in this negotiation. Number 7, and this is what we're doing through this whole thing. Now we're going to drive to our goal. We're going to drive to our goal. And like we all agreed before, we know that our goals are mutually beneficial. We're not driving to take advantage of anybody. So it should be easier for looking at it in that aspect. Now, under drive to your goal, we're going to drive to your goal in their language, not their physical language, not their New Jersey accent, but in their language. And everything that we learned in that interview, everything we learned during that active listening, we're going to drive to our goal, but using their language. If their fear, if their barrier is, you're going to take advantage of me, this is going to be embarrassing, I never needed a business coach before, this is embarrassing, what if somebody finds out that I'm having somebody else teach me how to negotiate? Well, let's remove that. Let's drive to in their language. I said, a lot of people use business coaches because a lot of businesses fail in the first 7, they don't make money until the first 7 years, right? 80% of businesses fail. New businesses fail. So we want to drive to our goal in their language. Let's remove that fear. Let's remove that barrier. And finally, number 8. Number 8 is when you, not if, I'm not going to say if, because when you leave this masterclass today with Daniel, it's always going to be when. When you get that victory, I want you to celebrate it. I want you to celebrate your victory for 2 things. I want that emotion. I want to create an emotional attachment to that win because that's going to help you remember it. There's science that says the reason that you remember certain things as opposed to other things is because there is an emotion attached to it. Whether it's a positive or a negative emotion, you remember it because there's an emotion attached to it. So I want you to celebrate that victory. Okay, I celebrated when I was on the news 3 times after talking to Daniel, which is why I'm here today, because I know that he has great information, skills, and acumen to offer. So I celebrate that. And by celebrating that, I want you to tell somebody, tell your boss, tell your mentor, send Daniel a text. When I posted my news interviews and I tagged Daniel in it, and you know how great a feeling it was when he said, awesome, I love this. Whenever I did that felt fantastic. Okay, because he's a mentor to me. He's a mentor to me. So that felt fantastic. Tell your significant other, tell your boss, the company owner, tell your best friend, tell your family members, let them know, because 2 things are going to happen. It's going to be more positive emotions, it's going to be more for you to remember. And then they may ask you, well, how did you do that? And you'll get to tell them. That's going to reinforce those 8 things that you just wrote down. Well, first I just listened to them. And then I did this. And then I did this. And then I did this. So it's going to drive that point home. You're going to remember what you did. Okay. So of those skills, are we all doing that? Somebody type in, I'm already kind of doing some of those things. Okay. So the first 2 tools, number 1 is everything is a negotiation. Everything is a negotiation. Every conversation you have with somebody technically is a negotiation, right? Even if it's Daniel and I deciding where we're going to go to lunch, that's a negotiation. Right? But he's going to probably be compliant, right? And number 2 was we have to determine the type of compliance that there is, compliant, unknown compliant, or non-compliant. We have to determine what this type of person is for number 2. Are they compliant, unknown, or non-compliant? And today we focused on the non-compliant. Okay. Any other questions that anybody has from the group? I love seeing the heads nod. That is so good for me. All right. And I know your time is valuable. So I know my time is done. So Daniel, I want to thank you, the group. I want to thank all of you for listening, for nodding, and for participating, and just seeing those smiles. I love seeing the teeth. I love seeing the teeth and the heads nod. Daniel, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you so much.
My friend, thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, was your mind just blown away? Was it blown away?